Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My dear brothers and sisters, welcome to Unfiltered Muslim and yet another interview with our beloved Sheikh Imran Hussein. Today's topic is his latest published book, The Qur'an and Russia's Destiny. And it's Jum'ah today, so Jum'ah Mubarak to all of you. And Jum'ah Mubarak to you, Sheikh. Welcome to Unfiltered Muslim. How are you doing?
Thank you. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah barakatuh, Wahid. You are in Stockholm in Sweden, and I am in Manchester in Britain, and it's today the 20th day of the month of Safar of the year 1447. Yeah.
So my first question before we begin, I want to clarify one thing. Please, Sheikh, could you clarify who is a kafir? Because in today's world, many are quick to label individuals, groups, or even nations as kafir without careful thought or proper understanding. Since this discussion is about Russia, I believe it is essential to begin to clarify from the Quranic perspective who truly falls under this term, so that we may approach the subject with both accuracy and justice.
There's a difference between an act of kufr and a kafir. Someone can commit an act of kufr and not be a kafir. So let us first of all distinguish between an act of kufr and the kafir. And your question is, who is the kafir? And the answer is, someone who knows the truth and who rejects the truth based on knowledge is a kafir. There are acts of kufr, and the Quran makes many different kinds of kufr. An act of ingratitude, for example, is kufr, okay? But in the legal sense of the word, kufr, when it's connected with truth, would be a belief which is in contrary to truth. Like, for example, the worship of Jesus, the son of Mary, Nabi Isa alayhi salam, is God, and is the Son of God. The belief in the Trinity, the God the Son, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Ghost. These are all acts of kufr, definitely. But that does not make the person who has done it a kafir. The person who was accepted these beliefs, which are beliefs of kufr, must be presented with the truth. For example, the truth which has come down in the Qur'an. And when he understands that truth and he rejects that truth, then he's a kafir.
Right, correct. That's what you actually clearly explained in your book, with the perspective of the Quran. So thank you for your answer. I'll jump to the next question. So I want to move beyond geopolitics and into the spiritual dimension. Sheikh, in your book, you speak about Russia's destiny, not only in geopolitical terms, but also within the framework of the Quran. Could you share how Russia's role connects to the moral and spiritual order that Allah establishes in history, and how this differs from purely political analysis?
Russia's heart is spiritual. The heart of the modern Western world is godless and pagan. There's a big difference between the two. They attacked Russia in 1917. It was an attack launched by the West and by European Jews. And they brought about the Bolshevik Revolution, and Russia eventually became a part of the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union was a godless, atheist state. And for something like 60 or 70 years, the Soviet Union hammered away against religion and religion's way of life, but in particular, did all it could to try to destroy the Russian faith, the spiritual faith, in the Orthodox Christian faith, and in the spiritual life. And the Soviet Union collapsed after some 60 or 70 years. And as soon as the Soviet Union collapsed, Russia immediately began her journey back to her spiritual heart and to the Orthodox Christian way of life. That journey has only been commenced. That journey has not as yet been completed. So don't go criticizing Russia when Russia is still changing. But you should at least have the capacity to recognize the direction in which Russia is changing and returning to what she was before the Bolshevik Revolution. Russia was an intensely Christian country. Russia was led by the Tsars. The last one, the Tsar Nicholas, was a very, very religious man. Not only him, all his family members. They were very religious. They had the attachment to the spiritual way of life. There is a verse of the Qur'an in Surah Al-Ma'idah where Allah speaks of a Christian people. And he says that at that time when the Jews would be most hostile to you, and another people who are shrunken in shirk would be most hostile to you. At that time you will find that there will be a people who declare we are Christians. They declare that we are Christians, and they will be closest in love and affection for you. So these are not a secular people. The Christians of the Western world are secularized. They are primarily French, primarily American. Their identity is their national identity, and the religious faith is secondary. So that's the price they pay for being secularized. But these are not the people who are secularized in this sense of the word, in that their primary identity is not national. Their primary identity is their faith. So the Quran says they are a Christian people who will declare we are Christians. So clearly, they're not Americans, they're not French, they're not British. They are the Orthodox Christian world, which is led by Russia. Then the Quran explains why these people will become closest in love and affection for Muslims at that time when, for example, the genocide is taking place in Gaza. And the answer from the Quran is because, number one, they still have the institution of the priesthood. The priests are held in high esteem. In the Western world, your priest could be a pedophile. In the Western world, a sportsman or a sportswoman or a movie actor or movie actress have a higher status in society. A banker has a higher status in society, and a priest has a fairly low status in society. But the reason why these Christians will become closest in love and affection for you, says the Quran, is because they still have the institution of the priesthood. They are a society which is a religious society in which the position of the priest is very high in that society. Number two, the Quran goes on to say the second reason why these Christians will show themselves to be closest in love and affection for Muslims is because they have the institution of monasticism. They honor and they revere their monastery. Their hearts are attached to their monastery. That's why the Christians of the Balkans are so attached to Kosovo, because ancient Kosovo is where they had all their monasteries. And this attachment to the monastic way of life is part and parcel of the religious profile, and that's the profile of Russia. And number 3 says the Quran, they are not an arrogant people. The Christians of the West want to rule the world. The reason why Trump wants to make America great again is because he wants to restore Pax Americana. What is Pax Americana? Answer, it is the United States of America functioning as a ruling state in the world. That's the Western world. And before Pax Americana, the world witnessed Pax Britannica. Again, it's the Western Christians, where Britain, for many, many years, centuries, Britain was a ruling state in the world. These are Christian people who have an obsession. They want to rule the whole world. And that is arrogance. And the Quran says these Christians who will be closest in love and affection for you would be a people who are not arrogant. That is because of their profile of spirituality and of their dedication to the religious way of life.
So your research on Russia, how does the Quranic methodology guide you to the conclusions that differ from the political analysts?
Well, there are political analysts of the West who have an obsession in hatred for Russia and hatred for the Orthodox Christian way of life. There was a time when the Orthodox Christian world had a state which was a Christian state, the Byzantine Empire, based in Constantinople. And these are Christians who wanted to bring back to the world Holy Israel. They lost Holy Israel in Jerusalem after the attempt to crucify Jesus, Nabi Isa alayhi salam. And Allah expelled them all, the Israelite people, from the Holy Land. And He placed a ban on them. They could never return to that Holy Land until a certain time arrived in history. And the Jews were then scattered all over the world. All over the world, you'll find little pockets of Jews, even in China, even in Argentina. But Allah helped the Christians who accepted Jesus as the Messiah and who wanted to live the religious way of life and who longed to restore the holy state that Nabi Dawood alayhi salam had established and Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had caused to become a ruling state. And the Quran, the Hadith tells us that Allah helped them to conquer Constantinople without fighting. And when they conquered Constantinople, they established a holy state. It was called the Holy Byzantine Empire. And that Holy Byzantine Empire was still existing at the time of Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. But of course, there were corruptions which took place in their beliefs when after some 300 or 400 years of Christianity, the Emperor Constantine presided over the Council of Nicaea and formalized the acceptance of the Trinity and the worship of Jesus as God and the Son of God, etc. But then came a split in that Holy Byzantine Empire. One part of the Christian world chose to turn away from the Lord God and His orders and did not respect the law of the Sabbath. And when they were in Constantinople, they lived by fishing. So Allah caused the no fish would come on any day of the week None. Only on the Sabbath day would the fish come. And the fish are jumping, you can see them. But they're not allowed to fish on the Sabbath day. So this was a test for them. And one part of the Christian world said, we don't care 2 peanuts anymore for the law. And they went fishing. Another part of the Christian world warned them that you are going to be punished. And a third part of the Christian world realized you're wasting your time warning these people. They will never change. That part of the Christian world which stayed faithful to the law and did not go fishing on the Sabbath day, we remained Orthodox Christians in Constantinople. But that part of the Christian world which went fishing on the Sabbath day, Allah cursed them. And not only did Allah curse them, He punished them. He said, He said, Kunu kiradatan khasi'in. This is located in 2 or 3 parts of the Quran. And that is the modern Western world. Be apes, despised. The tafsir of the Quran, many mufassirun held the view which is wrong, very wrong, that they were transformed into monkeys and they lived for a few days and they died. That's not true, because the Quran itself says that Allah's creation does not change. La tabdila li khalqillah. I should not have to repeat it 100 times. And so we reject the literal understanding of this curse. And we say what it means is these are people who are cursed to eventually live like monkeys. I've explained this in my book entitled Constantinople in the Quran. But my critics would not read my books. And when they read it, they can't stomach it. It causes them indigestion. So Allah cursed them to eventually live like monkeys. Monkeys, Wahid, don't wear any clothes, they're naked. But that's not despicable, that's their way of life. But when human beings turn away from clothing and begin to live naked in public, that is a sign that they're now living like monkeys, and that's the curse that Allah placed upon them, and that is the Christians in the Western world. Monkeys do their bedroom life in public, but that's nothing despicable for them. That's their fitra, their way of life. But this part of the Christian world will eventually show a preference for public sexual relations. And that's happening now in the Western world. So the curse that Allah placed upon them is now manifesting itself. So now you have 2 parts of the Christian world. One part which is cursed by Allah, and the other part which still tries, still holds on. Wahid still holds on to part of the truth, even though they have the Trinity and they worship Jesus, but they still hold on to the religious way of life. When the Crusades took place, eventually it was in the 3rd Crusade that the Western world, not Russia, not the Orthodox Christian world, they had no part of the Crusade. It is the Western world which broke away from Constantinople. They're the ones who launched the Crusades something like 40 years after the formal breakup took place in 1052, the Great Schism. And if we have the time, I can explain to you why the Great Schism took place. So about 40 years later, in 1090, the Pope in Rome launched the First Crusade to try to recover Jerusalem. But when the Third Crusade took place, the Crusaders attacked Constantinople because they had a bitter hatred in their heart for the Orthodox Christian world. It is that bitter hatred which is seen in the hatred for Russia and anything Russian, and they're supporting Ukraine. They wanted to bring about a color revolution in Ukraine in order to crucify Russia. That's why they had a color revolution in Ukraine. They love color revolution. They are now trying to bring about a color revolution in Hungary. They're now trying to bring about a color revolution in Serbia. They're now trying to bring about a color revolution in Slovenia. That's what they're doing now as I speak. They love these color revolutions. So when they brought about they conquered Constantinople in the year, when was it now? I can't remember when the Third Crusade took place. And the Western world took control of Constantinople. The Western world took control of Constantinople. This was the bitter hatred they had for the Orthodox Christian world. But before that, or probably after that, I can't remember the date, when the Ottoman Empire emerged, and the Ottomans now, and after the Christians and the Orthodox Christians were recovered Constantinople, I think after 80 years, they recovered Constantinople. When the attack came from the Ottoman Empire, and the Ottoman Empire was able to circle Constantinople, and the Orthodox Christian patriarch did not have the means to defend Constantinople. He appealed to the West, to his brother Christians. We need your help, otherwise Constantinople will fall. The Western Christian, the Pope in Rome and the Western Christians said, we will help you on the condition that you give up your Orthodox Christian way of life and you follow our Christianity, the pagan Christianity. And the Orthodox Christian world said, no, we prefer the pagri or the turban of the Sultan to the hat of the cardinal. That was the response. So you see in this, both the attack on Constantinople, your own Christian brothers, and conquering Constantinople and ruling over Constantinople for 80 years, the hatred they had in their hearts for the Orthodox Christian world. You see it again when they refused to help Constantinople when surrounded by the Ottoman Empire, and you see it again today in Ukraine. So it is plain and clear that there is a bitter hatred, hostility, and obsession in the West against Russia, not because of Russia, but because of the Orthodox Christian faith. The Qur'an gives us this explanation that your political scientists will not give.
Correct. In your book, also, you position Russia as playing a unique role in resisting the Gog and Magog world order as well. How should Muslims understand the balance between welcoming the resistance and not falling into blind allegiance to any nation state?
It is the fault of the world of Islamic scholarship that they have failed miserably so and embarrassingly so in understanding what the Quran has to say on the subject of Gog and Magog. You cannot find a single prominent scholar of Islam anywhere in the world today who is prepared to explain the subject from the Quran correctly. Allah has spoken of Gog and Magog only twice in the Quran, only twice. So it's not so difficult if there are only two references. One is in Surah Al-Kahf, and is connected with Zulkarnain. And Zulkarnain is connected with the Black Sea. The Black Sea. And Zulkarnain is described in the Quran as eventually prevailing over people living in the region of the Black Sea on behalf of the Lord God. He's given blessed with power, and he uses that power to punish the oppressor and to punish those and to reward those who live the religious way of life. That's the profile of Zulkarnain. And he travels to the west and he travels to the east. And then when he travels in the third direction, which we recognize to be a pass in the Caucasus Mountains, there he comes across Gog and Magog. And he succeeds in containing the power of Gog and Magog behind the barrier. Gog and Magog are human beings. I don't have the time, Wahid, to keep on repeating 500,000 times what I've taught so many times already in my life. I'm an old man now. And I'm tired of repeating what I'm repeating. But it's just like water falling on the backs of a duck. I can speak 1,000,000 times. They will never accept my views. This was Gog and Magog being contained behind the barrier. They are powerful people, human beings, but they use their power to oppress. They are people with indestructible power, but they use their power to oppress. They use their power in a decadent way, in a godless way, in a pagan way. And when he contained Gog and Magog behind that barrier, the world was safe from Gog and Magog. That is Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran. But because Allah describes him as Zulqarnain, the implication is that he's someone, not someone who has two horns. No, because the Quran refers to Qarn many, many times, the word Qarn, and not even once does the Quran use the word Qarn to mean horn. Every time the Quran uses the word Qarn, it refers to a generation, a people, an epoch. So we dismiss that nonsense about the horn. Let the schoolboys follow that. So now then, because he is Zulkarnain, the implication, Wahid, and I have tried to teach this, and I have failed, because they wouldn't listen to me. They wouldn't listen to me. The Zulkarnain is someone who impacts on history twice. That is the meaning of Karnain. But I have wasted my time for 25 years. They wouldn't listen to me. No, they wouldn't listen to me. So therefore, if Zulkarnain is successful in containing Gog and Magog the first time when he built the barrier, there is a second time for Zulkarnain to do the same thing. He will impact on history twice. The first time took place thousands of years ago. No human being lives for so many thousand years. So it's rather foolish. It's rather foolish to identify Zulkarnain with any person in history, because he's still to occur, there's still to occur a second time in history. Zulkarnain is going to contain Gog and Magog a second time in history. So I have come to the conclusion, and Allah knows best, that Zulkarnain is most certainly not a historical person, but rather a transcendental being. Good. The Quran goes on to speak about Zulkarnain, about Gog and Magog, for a second time. That's only 2 times. That's all, 2 times. And the second time is in Surah Al-Anbiya, where Allah speaks of a town. He destroyed the town. He expelled the people of the town. He placed a ban on them that they could never return to reclaim this town as their own Until when? Until Gog and Magog are released, not sent. Released, not sent. Released. Let me repeat it one more time. The Quran says when Gog and Magog are released, not sent, released. At that time, Gog and Magog will not only be released, but they'll spread out all over the world. And this, Wahid, for people who have even 2 pounds worth of common sense, would understand, 2 British pounds of common sense. I'm in Britain now, I'm not in Malaysia. Will understand that this is an event which will occur only once in history. Only once in history will mankind witness Gog and Magog when they are released, spreading out all over the world. And with their indestructible power, they take control of power all over the world. And then they proceed to use that power to oppress. They're using the power in a godless way. They're using the power in a decadent way. They're using the power as a pagan people, in contrast to Gog and to Zulkarnain, who has faith in God. So when Gog and Magog are released, these people will be brought back to that town from which they had been expelled. Gog and Magog will bring them back. The question, Wahid, is which town is it? Wahid, I can continue to teach this subject from now until Qiyamah. My people will not accept. They prefer to live in their ignorance, embarrassing ignorance, but they will not accept that there is a simple way that we can recognize which town it is and identify that town. Just simply go to Prophet Muhammad والسلام, because he is the one who identified Gog and Magog with Jerusalem. Our Prophet did that. He said that Allah will destroy Gog and Magog in Jerusalem. So I am on safe foundations when I say that the town is Jerusalem. But my people, the world of Islamic scholarship, they will never accept it. I will die and leave this world, but they will never accept that the town is Jerusalem. So now then, we now have an understanding. Who brought the Jews back to Jerusalem? It's the modern Western world. Modern Western civilization is the civilization of Gog and Magog. I want to keep these words of mine in public until Judgment Day. I want to stand before Allah on Judgment Day, proudly declaring that the civilization, modern Western civilization, is the civilization of Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog control power in the West. So there is a second current to take place. And that second current will take place when we see power manifesting itself in the Black Sea. When I met with the Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, last year, I was surprised to be invited to be part of a small group. I don't know why they invited me to have dinner with him. And when I got a chance to talk at that dinner, I asked, can I speak to you about the Quran in Russia? And he allowed me. But he was astonished when I spoke about the Black Sea and the Quran, because he had no knowledge of that, about that. The Quran speaks about the Black Sea. And the second current will take place when you see power manifesting itself in the region of the Black Sea. But this would be power resting on the foundations of faith, and power which opposes and resists oppression, and which seeks to help those who have faith in God. So when Russia recovered Crimea in 2014, I was in Malaysia and I said, it's time for me to celebrate, because I realized that power has now returned to the region of the Black Sea. And this is power resting on the faith in the one God. And this is power which will resist the oppressor. I realize that we are now on the door of the second garden of Karnaim. This was 11 years ago, Wahid. 11 years ago. Russia today controls power in the Black Sea. And Russia is resisting Gog and Magog, who are now control power in Ukraine and who are supporting Ukraine. So the world, the Qur'an has allowed me to be able to understand international affairs, understand what is happening in Ukraine, understand what is happening in the West and its relationship to Russia, while my people reject my scholarship. Wahid, what can I do? I am an Islamic eschatologist. Allah in His kindness blessed me to pioneer this branch of knowledge called Islamic eschatology. When I went to Geneva to the Graduate Institute of International Studies with a scholarship to do my PhD in international relations in 1974, I was ahead of everybody else in my class on the road to the PhD. And I asked the director of the institute, Professor Jean Frémont, who loved me like a son, because his son taught me in Trinidad. So Professor Jacques Frémont, who is the director of the institute, he accepted that he will be my thesis director. But I chose a topic I should not have chosen: post-Caliphate Islam and the search for a new Islamic public order, because that is eschatology. And Professor Fremont said to me, search the world of Islam for an expert, and we will invite him to join your team directing your thesis. And that was 1975. And there was no scholar in the world of Islam because we had no Islamic eschatology. Dr. Kaleem Siddiqui in London, who had established the Muslim Institute for Research and Planning, and who was an outstanding Islamic political scientist, and who loved me very much like a younger brother. Kaleem Siddiqui said, may Allah have mercy on his soul, my dear brother. Kaleem Siddiqui said to me in 1976, he says, Imran, you got the training from Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, and you're now working in the field of international relations. Imran, I want you to write this book on Jerusalem in the Qur'an. Jerusalem in the Qur'an. That the role that Jerusalem will play at the end time. When Kaleem Siddiqui asked me to do this, I took 27 years to write Jerusalem in the Qur'an, because I could not move forward with my PhD thesis without Islamic eschatology. And there was no Islamic eschatology in the world. The subject of the end time was studied as a part of Hadith studies. That's why we focused only on Hadith and did not go first of all to the Quran before going to the Hadith, and not use the Quran to assess the Hadith. And when a Hadith was in conflict with the Quran, to reject it. So Allah blessed me to pioneer Islamic eschatology. And it is because of our Islamic eschatology that I was able to understand the subject of Gog and Magog and to be able to relate Gog and Magog to contemporary affairs. But I have been blessed with this knowledge, but when I try to share this knowledge with my people, they don't accept it. They reject me.
Well, and one day they will have to accept it, inshallah.
Because I am an Islamic eschatologist, I try to restrict myself to the Quran and to the Sunnah and to the Hadith. I do not, even though I have profound interest in Christian eschatology, I have profound interest in Jewish eschatology. I wish I could learn more about Buddhist and Hindu eschatology, but you'll not find me using this in my scholarship. I prefer that the Christian should explain Christian eschatology. I prefer that the Jew should explain Jewish eschatology. I have a session in Wembley on the 24th of August of this month. And in that session in Wembley, I'll be having a dialogue with two Jewish rabbis. And you will see that I prefer to listen to them. Let them explain their eschatology. So while there is a magi, as you mentioned, there is a political scientist at work who is able to recognize this underlying feature of the modern world. There are a group of people around the world who control the affairs of the world. I leave that to the political scientists. And I restrict myself to this statement. I don't go beyond that. That Gog and Magog are those who control power in the West. But they are prolific. They have many babies. They even have Pakistani children. They have Saudi children. They have children all over the world. So you have Gog and Magog who are the progeny. The Hadith refers to them as Ahl Ya'juj wa Ma'juj. The people of Gog and Magog are scattered all over the world today. But the actual original Gog and Magog will be those who control power in the modern West. Go ahead, Wahid.
Correct, Sheikh. Thank you so much. So when we accept that Russia has a distinct role in the unfolding of the end time events, what lessons should Muslim majority nations draw from Russia's trajectory in terms of sovereignty, economic independence, or moral resilience?
I like that question, Wahid. I wish Pakistan would learn a few lessons, but those who control power in Pakistan are intellectually arrogant. Oh yes, they wouldn't learn from me. No. The world of Islam should reach out to Russia and reach out to the Orthodox Christian world, not to debate, to win a debate like monkeys, foolishly so. We won the debate, Not that way. Reach out to Russia and reach out to the Orthodox Christian world with respect and try to explain to them that we are brothers. We are the only two people on the face of the earth, the Orthodox Christian and the Muslim, who believe that Jesus was the Messiah, that Jesus came, that he left, and he will come back in person. The Western Christian now is increasingly believing that the return of Jesus is spiritual, not literal. And so therefore these two people should be coming closer to each other, not fighting each other, not debating each other. And if you are to turn to Russia and to the Orthodox Christian world, you should do it with sincerity, not Narendra Modi's way in India. It's called political expediency. He wants to make India great again, made Hinduism great again. So he's playing a political game. In cricket, it's called playing both sides. Playing both sides. So he has an attachment to Russia and an attachment to the West. But it is exploitative and expediency. That's not sincerity. And Pakistan is sunk, is now Pakistan is now proposing that Trump should get the Nobel Prize. That is
Seriously, did Pakistan propose that?
pathetic state of Pakistan today. That the government of Pakistan and the armed forces of Pakistan want Trump to be given the Nobel Prize for peace. And they're doing this at a time when Trump has just attacked Iran to try to destroy Iran's nuclear plants. Yes. And Trump is the only major power in the world today which is still supporting Israel in Gaza. That is the pathetic state of Pakistan, the intellectual arrogance of these people. But the people of Pakistan, I believe, have already understood that Imran Khan was on the right road when he went to Russia and he was attempting to build with Russia the same kind of relationship that Pakistan has with China. I think Algeria is also moving in that direction now, to building with both Russia and China a more powerful relationship and turning away from the Western world. If the world of Islam were to turn sincerely to Russia and build political ties, build economic ties, and restrain itself and resist Trump and resist the Western world, which has an obsession on ruling all of mankind and therefore ruling the world of Islam as well, it will be good for the world of Islam. But where can we find those leaders? When you have a leader who understands it, they put him in jail.
In your experience, Sheikh, how do Muslims risk misinterpreting the Quranic guidance on the roles of nations like Russia? And what are the dangers of either over romanticizing or dismissing such roles in the larger divine plan?
The problem is located in the methodology for the study of the Qur'an and the assessment of the Hadith. If you stay with the classical view, my mistake. If you stay with the conventional view, which is now today that absolute truth is located not only in the Quran, but there's absolute truth in the Hadith. Once a Hadith is Sahih, it has a status equal to the Quran. Absolute truth is also located in Tafsir. Once it's in the Tafsir, we accept. If it's not in the Tafsir, the sky can fall. We never accept it if it's not in the Tafsir. This brand of Islam, this brand of scholarship, this brand of methodology is bogus. And it is prevailing all over the world. And that's one of the reasons why one of the most important and influential thinkers and scholars of Islam to have emerged in the modern age, even though he never had a beard, even though he dressed in three-piece suits, was Dr. Muhammad Iqbal. The phenomenal impact of Iqbal was that he refused to accept this bogus methodology. Rather, Iqbal chose to go to the Quran by himself, all alone, directly to the Quran, not through Hadith and not through Tafsir, but go directly to the Quran. And he got a methodology for study of the Quran. And you see that methodology at work in his book, the reconstruction of religious thought in Islam. Iqbal therefore pioneered a new methodology for the study of the Quran and Hadith. But all that he did was to pioneer it. The man who actually took the challenge for the reconstruction of religious thought in Islam was my teacher, who was Iqbal's most distinguished student, Maulana Dr. Muhammad Fadlur Rahman Ansari. And our viewing audience should read and study Maulana Dr. Ansari's 2-volume book, The Quranic Foundations and Structure of Muslim Society. In that book, you see the priority, the scholarly priority he gave to the Quran. And that he said the Hadith does not have the same status of the Quran. The tafsir does not have the same status of the Quran. Absolute truth is located only in the Quran. And when he published that book, there was criticism by those who considered the Hadith to have a status equal to the Quran. But before he could do the second work, in which he wanted to use the Quran now to judge the Hadith, if he had done that work, and if he had published that book, he would have been crucified. Oh yes. If he had shown that Quran, that this hadith is in conflict with the Quran, and that hadith is in conflict with the Quran, they would have crucified him. So Allah took him away before he could do that work. Just when he's about to start that book, Allah took him away. So I continued that scholarly trade that both these men, Dr. Iqbal and Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari, pioneered. And this book, The Quran and Russia's Destiny, this is the fruit. This is the fruit of that methodology which the world of Islam needs to accept if they are to get out of the sleep in which they're now located.
Thank you. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Can I just ask you in regards to this new book?
This is the last question.
Sorry?
This is the last question.
This is the last question. I just want you to elaborate. Find this book, and also if you have translated it in other languages which are published, of course, on imranhussein.org. For our listeners, I want them to read the book. So where can they find the book and buy it?
I want to thank you, Wahid, for your translation of the Quran and Russia's Destiny to Norwegian. And I hope the book will be published in Norway, and I'll be able to travel to Oslo, maybe in the month of December. The book has also been translated to Italian, and we just found the money today to pay for the cost of printing the book in Italian. The book has been translated to Bosnian and Serbian and has already been published, and I'll be traveling to Belgrade on the 1st of September, inshallah. I'll be in the Balkans all through the month of September, in Serbia as well in other parts of the Balkans. And the book will be on sale in the Balkans in the Serbian language. The book has been translated to Russian and already published in Moscow. And when I travel to Moscow, inshallah, we'll have a launch of the book in Russian. Wahid, I can't remember now if there are other languages in books. The book has already been translated, but there are several languages in which the translation is already going on here. The book is available. You can order it from my bookstore, imranhussein.org. Sorry, imranhussein.com. Or you can send an email to me. You can find my email at the bottom of the screen, and you can order the book from me. In the Western world, we sell it for £15. Yeah, but for the poorer countries, we reduce the price.
Jazakallah khairah. Thank you so much for your time, Sheikh. You honor us with your time and your presence, and I'll let you go now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, mashallah. Thank you so much.